Hello, everybody. Ken Hertz here, and welcome back. This is The Joy of Mixing, and we are back with our live drum mixing session. This was Warren Hewitt, produced like a pro. They went out to Honda Studios. They had an artist, Charlie Klauser, with them, did a little master class. She did a song, and yes, we have the multi tracks from that session. So please click in the description down below. It'll take you to the YouTube video. Watch the video, you'll get a good idea for how this kit was recorded. Check out the different mics involved, and of course, download the multi-tracks so you can mix right along with yours truly. And isn't that great? Okay, so now, where were we when we left off? Well, we have our snare here that we have to mix. What I want to do is I'm going to play you guys this track. I'm going to take the snare out, and I want you to notice that when I take the snare out, we're not really losing the snare much. I'm finding that the snare is kind of there throughout a lot of these tracks, just with the bleed and all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go through. Well, I'll let you listen and take it out, and then I'll explain what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and hit play. So you can see we're kind of suffering from a bit of a bleed issue, and how are we going to address that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go through, and I'm going to find the hi-hat in our tracks here, especially with the toms, with this overhead floor tom, and I'm going to just a real quick, just kind of show you what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to do this, and then through the magic of YouTube, I will be back, and this will all be magically done. But in the meantime, just to give you a real quick overview, like I'll come here to where we get this snare bleed. Just do a little scissor action there. Come over here, do a little scissor action here. And then basically take this bit here of snare that I know we don't need, and just going to come up to gain in Logic Pro. You just come over here to gain, just pull your gain down, zoop, pull it down, and then we have hopefully no snare sound. Okay, so that is how I'm going to tackle snare bleed. Before I get into gates and that kind of thing, I really want to see if there's a way that we can go in, kind of remove the snare from tracks that it's not needed, and hopefully by doing that, we'll kind of be able to reel the snare in a little bit. We don't want to, isolate the snare. That's not our goal. Our goal is just going to be to kind of tame it, to kind of we want the snare mics to shine just as much as we want the room to shine, but we don't want it to be so much where you take the snare mics away and it's like, hey, we still have plenty of snare left over. So I'm just going to go through. I'm going to remove kind of the snare where it's not really needed, and this is something I suggest you do with tom tracks and stuff like that anyway. So I'm going to go through, do that, and then I will meet you guys on the other side. So stick around, and I'll be right back. Okay, folks, so we're back. We're here. We went through. We took the snare bleed out of the hi-hat options we had here. We took a little bit of bleed out of the toms, the snare bleed out of the toms, and some bleed out of this overhead tom that was kind of like an over-the-shoulder microphone. Took some bleed out of there. So now that we've done that, I think we have something here that we can work with. Let's just go ahead. Let's get rid of that. Let's go ahead and listen now with the snare. I think you're going to hear a pretty big difference compared to what we had when we only, when we had the snare in all these tracks, Now to adjust the snare, and then we removed snare from these tracks. Let's give it a listen here. Yeah, so pretty much what we were going for, we were trying to, we wanted these close snare mics to kind of come through more in the mix, and still have our room mics, but we wanted to have that close-up mic, and I think we're on the right track. That sounds pretty good. Just a quick note here, I'm going to pull up the mixing panel here in Logic. If you look over here, you'll see on the stereo bus we have SonarWorks. And if you're not familiar with SonarWorks, basically what this plugin does is takes these Beyerdynamic headphones that I'm wearing. Knows has the EQ curve for this particular set of headphones in there, and it pretty much does the opposite curve. So flips it, takes the EQ curve, does the opposite. So now you have basically a nice flat EQ response coming out of these headphones, and I'll tell you, this plugin has been really, really helpful for me in mixing. So it's one that I recommend. We're not going to mix with it on full time because it's going to give you, this video will now sound weird in your headphones. So we're not going to mix with it all the time. I just wanted to show you that we are going to periodically go in and check on this plugin just to kind of make sure that we're on the right path, which I absolutely suggest you do. Okay, let's go ahead and let's see what we're going to do with this snare. I'm going to go down to our effects here, and again, I'm just going to work back in SSL. You don't have to use an SSL plugin. You can use whatever plugin you have. Any plugin will do the trick as long as you have the ability to do EQ and compression on it. It won't be a problem. I just happen to like the SSL. I like these presets. We'll go into the producer presets. We'll come over here. Let's go to snare top, RD snare top. Let's just go ahead and give this a listen. Okay, so yeah, giving us a little bit of smack out of this snare top, which is what we want. We're going to do a little more EQing, probably not a whole lot. Well, you know what? Let's see here. Hit play. Yeah, I'm doing some low passing of. Let's go up to 9K and give that a listen. I'm doing some low passing because I'm going to be using the snare bottom to get the high end of the snare. I don't need the high end of the snare top and the high end of the snare bottom to get the snare I want, just like we don't need necessarily the low end of the snare bottom and the low end of the snare top. We want to make sure that we want to get the right sound, but we don't want to, just bring in all these different sounds to try and blend the whole sound together and try to come up with something. It's just best to create spaces for places to live. That is the main goal. Not the main goal of mixing. It's one of the things that takes a little bit of time to learn in mixing is how do we create places for these frequencies to live, and like you can get a really clear mix if you do that. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here, just by taking out some of the low end, taking out a little bit of the high end. Um, Now we're only taking, we're high passing up to 63 hertz, again, just to kind of get out of the way of the kick drum. Again, creating spaces for places to live is important. And so that's part of what we're doing here, taking out some 60, making way for the kick. Yeah, let's go ahead and listen now. I'm going to bring in the snare bottom. And for this, I'm just going to go with our good friend Pro Q3 because I pretty much have an idea of what I want with this snare bottom. Again, I don't always use a snare bottom when I mix. Even if it's offered, I don't always use it. It's just not something that I typically use a lot. I tend to find that having a snare top more often than not does the trick, but you know what? For the heck of it, and because we can, we're going to mix with a snare bottom in this particular track. So, okay, we're high passing. I'm going to hit play here and just kind of go through and mess around with EQ a minute. Yeah, so I'm going to swap these out. You'll see that if you take away the snare bottom, you lose some of the high end, and if you take away the snare top, you lose some of the low end, or what I like to call the meat in the snare. I always want to hear the meat, the 100, 150, 190. I want to hear that meat in the snare. To me, that just sounds really good, so I like to make sure that that's in there. Let's go ahead and throw that in the track itself. And I'm just going to bring this back because I just want to hear kind of what it's doing in the beginning here. Yeah, I pulled back that snare bottom a little bit. It sounded kind of like it was just a little bit more bottom heavy than I would have liked. So just go in, pull that back a little bit, and that is going to be our snare sound for this track. So you can see what I did there, just kind of using those two microphones to really shape our snare drum. So moving on to the hi-hat here, we have the SM57. Again, this would be the Dave Jordan hi-hat trick, which I have not ever mixed with before. So this is kind of a first time for me in mixing with these two microphones. Basically, you have your dynamic Shure microphone and your condenser Rode microphone taped together on the hi-hat. let's just kind of hear. We're going to have to go to a spot where we're going to be able to hear this without a bunch of dead space, because again, we did take out a lot of that snare bleed and a lot of that kit bleed, kind of remove that from the hi-hat. We wanted to make this kit clearer than what it was, and we just had too much snare in there, so went through, took some out. Let's give the hi-hat a listen here. Yeah, the Shure is definitely giving us some more mid-range than I feel like the Rode's giving us. The Rode kind of sounds like, to me, maybe smoother, not pulling up as much of that mid-range. I think for something like this, these two microphones, what I would probably end up doing is going to Command 2. We have our two microphones here, our two hi-hat mics. I'm just going to bust these out to one, and we'll just go ahead and call this HH for hi-hat. Let's go ahead and bring it into our mixer here. And what I would probably do is just go ahead and EQ these two mics together. Let me hit play. And we're getting some computer problems, which hopefully don't last too long here. And I'm just going to bring that back and listen to that kind of down here in the mix. So all I really did here, and bring this up, is we took out the low end, right? We don't really need any kind of low end coming out of our hi-hat. It's just not needed. It doesn't really have any low end in it anyway, so best to just kind of take it out. Came to 137, that kind of clears the way of the snare, clears the way of the kick. If we had a bass track in this, it would clear the way of the bass. Getting that out of the way. Came down here, took out just kind of some muddy 350 stuff that I heard going on. Again, coming pretty much from the SM57. Just kind of took that out. a little bit of harshness at 1.5K, just a little bit. I feel like this hat is bright enough for me, really. No need to really brighten up the high end. I feel like it's pretty bright. And also, if we wanted to maybe even darken this hi hat a little more, we could just by coming in here and maybe pulling down a little 57, maybe pulling up a little bit of Rode. This sounds good. I like what we have here. Let me go ahead and just give it one more listen here. Yeah, I like that. That sounds pretty good. Let's move along now to the toms. We have our tom low top. Let's give this a listen. And again, we removed a lot of bleed and such from this tom. So kind of going with and sticking with our good friend. Nope, that is our good friend. The Pro Q3 is absolutely our good friend. But however, kind of sticking back here, I think I mentioned before about, you know, a good way to kind of get where you want to be with plugins is just kind of trying to find something that will hopefully work. And if you have to do some tweaking up top, if you got to tweak some knobs and buttons and whatever, we can do that. But the idea of a plugin, of a preset on a plugin, is to get you close, get you within range, and then you just got to kind of take that extra step to kind of refine it to how you want it to sound. So let's go ahead and just try this out. Oh yeah. Yeah, this I like. Put this on any drum. Who is this from? This is Dave Way. Shout out to Dave Way for this little preset here. Put this on any drum. Really was looking for some low end out of this tom, and wow, did we get it. Okay, yeah, let's move on. That tom sounds great. I'm not gonna play any more with that. Here we have tom high. Let's just go ahead and listen to this quickly. want to hear this tom at another part of the song. You know what? Let's come down here. Let's come down here. This is kind of a real tom driven part here. Yeah, I really like that. Really like what this tom is doing. Tom high, I think we're going to leave as is. Didn't really put much on there. I'm not going to put much on there. It's kind of blending, you know, the tom high and the tom low together to kind of get the tom sound I want. I think we have something pretty close here. Let's move on to the overheads. And again, with the overheads, this is the over the head or over the shoulder overhead. Let's just go ahead and listen here. So as far as sounds and what I want to hear, the only thing we're really going to do here is just do some high passing. We'll get out of the way of the kick, but not go crazy. Let's stop at 70 and just kind of hear what that's doing. Again, we're going to come in. I like to come in on overheads and room mics and just pull out sort of this low mid range area. I like to scoop that out. Doesn't have to be anything, well, sometimes it might have to be dramatic. Let's go ahead and just give us a listen here. So yeah, just doing some little bit of high passing, take out a little bit of that low mid, and I went with just a little bit of high end, maybe just to kind of brighten it up a hair. But again, not doing anything too out of control. The overheads, we got the overheads yet, this floor cymbal. The overheads, let's hear these two. I have an idea. I'm just going to kind of go through real quickly here. Again, coming back to our SSL. Let's just try this overhead smooth. Just to kind of see. You know what? I'm going to actually close this out. Hit Command 2. And I'm going to take that and move it over. This is just kind of a trial and error thing. Just kind of see what happens here. It's giving us some high end. I do like that. Let's put that in the track itself. Let's scoot this down here. Okay. Yeah, I like that. I like that on the overheads a lot. That was just just an SSL smooth overheads. Sounds pretty good. Again, we got a little bit of high end going on here. Um, just barely kind of boosted some 2K, which that's fine. The most important thing here is going to be taking out, and I'm just going to go ahead and take some out. Taking out some of that low end that we don't necessarily need. And that's really it. Just go ahead and listen to these again. You always want to make sure. You don't want to do something crazy and then say, oh, well, I wish I would have. You know, we want to make sure. Go through and make sure. Okay, that leaves us with the, well, you know what? While we're at it, let's just go ahead and put on SonarWorks here. This might sound a little strange to you folks at home, but it is a good tool, and I do recommend it to just kind of help you make sure you're on the right path here. There's this spot here that the toms come in, and it's pretty loud, so I'm going to make sure that that's balanced. Okay. So that would be the overheads. Then we have this this kind of cymbal laying on the floor kind of thing, and we want to definitely check this one out. I think what we're going to do here, I think this is kind of just, I'll give it a listen real quick. This is kind of just giving us some high-end information. Let me just hear this. All right, I think for today we are going to go ahead and stop right there. So next time we meet up, we have the Neumann room. We have the other two left and right Thurston mics, the CM402s, and this, what I would basically call a drum crush track. That's this Marble Room. We will work with that, and then we will go ahead and take a look at the piano. Let's just unmute the piano just to kind of give you an overall picture, and then we will reconvene next time. Let's go ahead and have a listen here. Okay, yeah, I think we are. I think we're on the right track here. We're on the right path. And folks, that will do it for this video. If you like it, go ahead, leave me a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like. Leave me a comment, question, anything down below. Be sure to check out the video in the description for the mics that were used. Charlie Clouser, the artist. Make sure to check out Produce Like a Pro. Download the multi-tracks, mix with me, and until then, folks, happy mixing. See you next time.